Welcome to the Deep Dive Report Show. We're the place that drags the most disturbing, frankly dangerous ideas out into the open for you. And tonight's topic is definitely up there. Oh, yeah. Tonight we are staring down something truly terrifying. It hits right at the core of what being an American even means. We're talking about the proposal, the idea of deporting United States citizens. Yes, deporting Americans. Just let that sink in for a second. And it wasn't just some, throwaway line, was it? This seems to be a concrete suggestion. Exactly. It's a chilling glimpse into a mindset that seems completely contemptuous of our fundamental rights. A mindset that seems detached from the Constitution itself. Right. This isn't some fringe theory cooked up on the internet. It was floated by someone who actually held the highest office, which makes it incredibly serious. So what happens? What happens if the very basis of your belonging, your citizenship, can just be revoked, pulled out from under you? That's the nightmare, isn't it? Yeah. What does citizenship mean if it's conditional? It's the key question for every single American listening. Where's the security in that? Okay, let's dive in. Legally speaking, where does this even stand? Well, let's just cut through the noise right away. Yeah. The idea of deporting American citizens, it's not just morally repugnant, it is absolutely unequivocally illegal. Right. Immigration law, the whole body of law about deportation, yeah, it fundamentally doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. Think of it like trying to use a screwdriver to hammer a nail. The tool just doesn't fit the task. The law isn't designed for that. It's a completely different category. Yeah. Immigration law deals with non-citizens, their entry, their status, their removal. Citizens are outside that scope entirely. And let's be super clear here. We are not talking about those rare specific cases where someone got citizenship through fraud. That's a whole different legal track, a very narrow exception. Yes, we are talking about born and bred Americans, people whose citizenship is inherent. The idea of grabbing them and shipping them out, it's an assault on the core idea of American identity. It suggests a profound misunderstanding of what citizenship is. It's not a privilege the government grants and can take back on a whim. It's right. And look, this isn't just our take. Legal experts, people across the political spectrum are basically screaming about this. The consensus is pretty overwhelming, wouldn't you say? Absolutely. Take Ilya Somin. He's a professor at George Mason University's Antonin Scalia Law School. Not exactly a left-wing firebrand, right, known for a more conservative or libertarian viewpoint. And he called this proposal, quote, pretty obviously illegal and unconstitutional. Pretty obviously. No mincing words there. It's about as direct a legal assessment as you can get. Then there's Emma Winger, a lawyer with the American Immigration Council. She stated it plainly. Immigration law granting deportation authorities simply does not apply to U.S. citizens. Again, highlighting that fundamental mismatch between the law and the target group. It's just not applicable. So the legal foundation is just not there. It's non-existent, which makes you wonder, where does this idea even gain traction? Is there any historical precedent they might be twisting? Well, that's another angle. Anthony Crease, he's a law professor at Georgia State University, brings up a really potent historical point. Okay. He reminds us that the British policy of exiling alleged criminals, banishment, that was one of the grievances that led up to the American Revolution. Ah, right. So we literally fought a war to get away from governments having that kind of power over their own people. Exactly. It was seen as tyrannical then, and now someone wants to bring it back. It's mind-boggling. Crease also emphasized something crucial about the rights of citizenship, didn't he? He did. He said, I can't see how exiling someone is permissible as part of the bundle of rights that are fundamental to citizenship. And he added something even more chilling. What was that? Doubly so if the effort to house American citizens overseas means turning a person over to a foreign authority. So not just kicking them out, but handing them over. Which raises huge questions about sovereignty and responsibility. Does the U.S. just wash its hands of its own citizens once they're accused of something? It seems that's the implication. And even libertarians are horrified. David Beer at the Cato Institute, also not typically aligned with big government power grabs. Right. He called for the courts to stop what he termed extrajudicial imprisonment by foreign proxy. Extrajudicial, outside the law. That phrase really captures the danger, doesn't it? Yeah. Imprisonment without proper legal process outsourced to another country. Beer stated it flat out. All within the U.S. legal framework. Flawed as it might be, it exists. And even prisoners here retain some constitutional rights. But what happens if you just dump an American citizen in a foreign prison? Do all their rights just vanish at the border? Are they subject to entirely different, potentially much harsher legal systems with no U.S. protection? It's a terrifying prospect, and it's not just hypothetical, is it? This El Salvador situation seems like a disturbing test case. It really does. The reporting indicates the U.S. government has already sent individuals accused of gang ties to a, quote, notorious prison there. And the really alarming part, some were sent without the ability of courts to determine whether they have been correctly identified, meaning without due process. Yeah, without even confirming they got the right person before shipping them off. Think about that. Just gone based on an accusation. And there's a specific case of Kilmar Bredo Garcia. Right. Our own Justice Department admitted he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. Mistakenly. And he wasn't convicted of anything. Not even charged. Nope. Just deported based on presumably bad information or association, vanished into the system. That is a catastrophic failure of due process. And what happened when a U.S. judge actually ordered him returned? What was the administration's response then? They essentially shrugged, didn't they? Claimed he was outside their jurisdiction. Yeah, basically said, not our problem anymore, El Salvador has him, and President Bukele apparently refused to send him back. So, zero accountability. A mistake is made, someone is wrongly sent to a potentially dangerous situation, and the U.S. government says, oops, too late. It's chilling. David Beer, the Cato expert, connected these dots directly. What does he say? He warned, the U.S. government has already deported someone to this prison illegally and claimed no recourse to get them back, implying a precedent has already been set for this lack of accountability. Exactly. He finished, so the courts must shut down this unconstitutional train wreck before U.S. citizens are unlawfully caught up in it. It's not a slippery slope, we're already sliding. The urgency is clear. If this can happen to a non-citizen mistakenly, the safeguards against it happening to a citizen seem terrifyingly weak under this proposal. And even the Supreme Court has sounded warnings about this kind of thing, right? Yes, in a ruling related to the Alien Enemies Act, which deals with non-citizens from hostile nations during wartime, the courts still recognize the importance of due process. And Justice Sotomayor wrote something incredibly relevant. Her warning was quite stark. She wrote that if judicial review is denied before removal, not only non-citizens, but also United States citizens could be taken off the streets, forced onto planes, and confined to foreign prisons with no opportunity for redress, directly connecting the denial of due process for non-citizens to the potential threat against citizens themselves. It's that slippery slope argument again. It really is. If you can mistakenly deport Abrego Garcia and then say, tough luck, what stops the same logic applying if a U.S. citizen is mistakenly identified and deported? And David Beer made that point too, didn't he? Yeah, that if you establish this power for convicted criminals, there is also no reason the government couldn't treat others who've not been convicted of crimes in the same way. Once that door is open, who decides who's bad enough? It fundamentally shifts the power dynamic between the citizen and the state. Which is why Ilya Somin says this whole situation is an additional reason why courts must force the return of Abrego Garcia and others illegally sent to El Salvador. The judiciary needs to act as a check on this executive overreach. It's crucial. And let's be clear about what awaits people in these prisons. What did Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem report Bukele said? It was chilling. She reported Bukele stated that people sent to that prison will never leave. Never leave. So we're potentially talking about American citizens being handed over to a foreign power for what amounts to a life sentence without due process. It's almost unthinkable. It goes against every principle of American justice and rights. This whole thing, it's not just about crime policy. It's a fundamental assault on liberty. It's testing the waters for authoritarian power. It absolutely challenges the core tenets of a constitutional democracy. We cannot just sit back and treat this like another crazy news cycle. This is a direct threat. It's a flashing red light. Complacency is incredibly dangerous here. The implications are too profound. The legal experts say it's illegal. History warns against it. The potential for abuse is staring us in the face. It's an unconstitutional train wreck waiting to happen. The evidence and expert opinion are remarkably aligned against it. This isn't about politics.